Hello friends and reloaders, builders. Today in this video we're going to be covering the CS7.2 camera assembly. So if you didn't buy the full kit and you opted to go the route of building everything yourself, this is the video for you. So we cover everything for the lighting ring, the installation, the focusing of the camera, the whole thing. So let's jump right in. Okay, we're looking at all the parts we need for the project. First we have the clamshell or the camera housing. Then we're going to have our turbo fan. You're going to need a screwdriver with M3 socket head hex bit. You could use Allen keys if you want, but I would recommend that. You're going to need your wire strippers and a set of crimpers. These are ferrule crimpers, and we'll show you how to use those in a bit. Of course, the strippers here, and then this is the air guide for the fan, and of course we have our light ring, custom light ring, and we're going to show you how to solder that in this video as well. And then the diffuser, which helps spread out that light between those pieces. We're going to need 4 M2 screws. 2 of them are 10s and 2 are 8s. The ferrules and some wire. This length of wire is approximately 2 feet or 60 centimeters long. I'm recommending using 26 gauge, and red and black is what I'm doing my builds with. Lastly, we have the camera itself. This is the V2 camera from our previous project, and it comes with a USB cable, and we'll show you how to get that set up and focused in this video. Now the cable I would check to make sure that the connector is on well, that there's no pins pulled out. It's a 5-pin connector, but there's only 4 wires. Started right away by stripping the ends off of our wire. We're going to take a good 8 to 10 millimeters. Then we need to split this wire in half. Hopefully you got good fingernails, or use a set of clippers. And then we'll just twist those to get them nice and tight so they don't fray as we're pushing these through the PCB for soldering, which will be our next step. Okay, we have our PCB in a vise now, and we're going to go ahead and insert our wires from the back side. We stripped a little bit extra because it helps to clamp down, to have that extra wire length as we're pushing it through to clamp down. So I'll get this thing put back in the vise, and we'll get our soldering iron out and do some quick soldering on this piece. Okay, a little shaky camera here, but I think you get the idea. It doesn't take much heat or very much time, just to put a little dab of solder on there and get those suckers soldered down. Then we're just going to take a set of our wire clippers and get rid of that extra wire that's hanging out above, because we have to put that light ring diffuser on top of this, so we can't have these wires sticking up. And that's pretty much all we have to do on the light ring for assembly. Alright, now we're going to put it all together. And so before we do that, we need to make sure that our camera is focused. It's really difficult to focus the camera before or after you've put it into the clamshell. So it created a little jig here that you can print from the repo. And it takes a piece of brass. I'm using a 9mm piece here that locks into the groove, and that will give you a consistent focus. And so you can't see it, but off camera I'm plugging the USB into a hub, and then I have a computer that has the camera app open, so that lets me verify the video feed from the camera to see if we're in focus or not. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. There's a groove in this little jig that the camera slides into. So I'll hold that in place, just launch this camera app on the PC, and I apologize you can't see that yet, but we'll see that in a second. From here I just need to rotate, and from what I've seen on these cameras, most of them I have to rotate a few minutes counterclockwise. But here you can see just a little bit of a counterclockwise rotation, and we're pretty clear already on head stamp. So you can rotate that just a little bit back and forth until you get a clear picture. And that's all you have to do here. This is already set up, so when we drop it in our camera, it's going to look great. Okay, so these are our two clamshell parts, and you'll notice one of these has a hole in the side. That's the one that we want. And so we're going to take that piece and we're going to pass through our USB cable. And then we'll also take the wire. I can't find my wire. I'm not sure where it went, but there's the diffuser that we're going to need. I dropped it on the ground. So here it is. The wire that we had previously soldered, we'll go ahead and add the diffuser to the top. You'll see if you rotate it, it kind of clicks in place. And then this is the wire that we're going to need to go ahead and pass through that hole as well. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and attach our USB cable to the camera. Of course, you never get this right the first time, so don't force it. Put it in the right direction here. Then we're going to just slip this over the ring over the camera lens and then adjust the diffuser. Now you want the wires to point down as much as possible, and then basically just try to feed these into the grid without touching the lens with your finger. Otherwise you get grease on it. I guess you could wear gloves. It's a tight fit, so you may have to push it in, but before you really put a lot of pressure, check it. As you can see here, I didn't quite get it right. It's a little bit crooked. So just take your time, make sure you don't pinch the cables and get it in the slots correctly. And then you should be able to just push it in nice and smooth. And you can verify it by checking to make sure it's pretty much centered when you look down the top of the camera. So once we have the camera at this point, we can now take our other side of the clamshell and just align everything, and then use a little bit of pressure and just push it in. It should make a nice snap. And then it'll snap the other side, and you're pretty much done at this point. I don't usually stop here because I like to put a little bit of shrink wrap or something on those cables. But before we can do that, we've got to install our fan. The fan here is just a standard turbo fan, and it's going to have a air guide that you're going to put on and make sure the air guide is aligned over that hole, the slot in the back of the camera. And then we're going to take our two longer M2 by 10 screws, and those go through the side with the air guide. The air guide creates a little bit of more space, so you need a longer screw there. And then just tighten these down, but don't over tighten these. The plastic on there is not super strong, and if you use Gorilla Strength, you will definitely break it. Okay, we fast forwarded a bit, but I wanted to show you something here. You'll notice there's a bit of space underneath these tabs, and this is why I was saying don't crank these down, because you will break these tabs. Once you get to the point where those tabs are starting to bend down, you can back out a little bit, and that's good enough. That's all you need for that. That fan isn't going anywhere. Now for the last part of this, we just need to trim our wires up to get them the right length. And so taking the tie off, this wire that came with this particular fan is pretty long. So I'll just kind of stretch these out and try to get it the same length, about 60 centimeters, as my existing light ring cable. I actually chose this particular fan to use for my kits as well because of the different color wire. It's going to make it easier to decipher which one to use, and I don't have to use additional labeling. But here I'm going to strip about 8 to 10 millimeters off the ends, and this is where those ferrules are going to be crimped on. And so we have to split these. Sometimes I use my fingers on this, and sometimes I'll just use a little X-Acto knife to split them. But either way, split them, twist them, and then push the ferrule on. Now for this fan wire, if you happen to end up with the yellow and blue wire like I have here, the yellow side is hot or red. That's going to be our 12-volt lead, and the blue side is actually going to be ground. Okay, so before I crimp those ferrules on, I actually wanted to run those wire through a heat shrink tubing. I usually use a coat hanger with a little hook on it, but I couldn't find it, so I just rigged up this little piece of aluminum rod with some painter's tape. I think it's going to work fine, and that will help me pull that wire through the heat shrink. Now you can try to push the wire through, but they're pretty small wires and it can be a pain, so definitely recommend using some sort of guide and push the, pull it through the heat shrink. It's going to save you a lot of headache, unless you happen to get lucky and are able to push it through. But this is sort of the easy way to do it. So once I get that part, I can just rip the tape right off and I'm on my way. Now before I shrink the tubing, what I want to do here is go ahead and add a small zip tie to connect all these wires together right at the base of the camera. This is going to give it just a little bit more strength and reinforce those connections. So, pulling one wire won't rip out others. So I get that nice and tight and clip it, and then I'll go ahead and do the heat shrinking with my heat gun here in just a second. Okay, now I've shrunk the shrink tubing, and lastly I'm going to go ahead and put on those ferrules. I didn't put them on originally because it makes it way harder to get through the shrink tubing. So again, we're just going to twist those on. If you're not using shrink tubing, which you don't have to, you would have been done already. So this is just going a little bit extra to make things look nice and clean. So again, we're going to put our black and red on here, and then this time I'll actually crimp them. These ferrules, by the way, are E0308, 3 being the 0.3 millimeter, and then 8 being 8 millimeter length. And so that's what's usually required for a 24 or 26 AUG wiring. So you can buy a big batch of these. If you go on AliExpress, you can buy 1,000 of them for a few bucks. I bought a bunch in every color that I could find. That way I can color code them with my different parts. I really love these connectors because they're super easy as compared to some of the ones we were using for the previous versions. It makes a nice solid connection for the push terminals. Well, congratulations. That concludes the build of the CS7.2 camera assembly. You should have a working camera now that you can use in the classifier assembly. We'll see you in that build video. The links to all the builds are in the description of this video.